Hello, and welcome to episode 33 of the IP3 podcast. I'm Kevin, joined today by both Alex Becker and Mark Morrison. We're going to talk today about high seas drafting, primarily, at least as our main topic. But before that, breaking news: the BNR happened, and nothing is different. I think they charge by the letter for for the BNR announcement. So this one had one sentence, and that is that there are no changes anywhere. Ta-da! Um,
Kind of surprised
Was
at that, though. I thought that they would ban Traverse the Universe, just kind of like preemptively, like they did for Crown of Seeds. If they didn't want to have to try to balance around that for the next Mystic set, but maybe they'll save it for later, or maybe they'll just like lower the power of the next Mystic set, but keep that equipment.
I I think I would imagine it's still just an ongoing conversation of how to approach kind of neutering the stuff, right? Because like Traverse is it's the marquee Mystic equipment. It's really cool. It does a unique thing, gives you power and consistency, but they're probably deciding, okay, well, are we going to make it so that you know, the hero powers that are being activated from this chi are just way more reined in, right? They're not just a tutor. Another tutor for you can tutor your card to tutor whatever card you want and make a tiger. Um, Enigma makes it tougher, I think, because the problem with Enigma isn't, oh, I'm making a lot of spectral shields. The problem with Enigma is manifestations of Mirror Guy, and I think there's a world where if they're like, actually, let's just take manifestations of Mirror Guy out of the mix, and suddenly this helmet looks a bit less egregious if it's not Zen that's getting to use it to play a 7 card 50 damage turn.
so I'm unfamiliar with LSS policy there. Do they guarantee that every hero, the LLs, will be reprinted, or is it
No,
just more assumed that every hero will be reprinted?
there's been a minute since I've seen. I feel like there's at least a strong implication that over time heroes will come back to not necessarily be the same hero in the same class and talent slot, but when Chain hit LL, they were like, there will be another Shadow Rune Blade. That is something that is going to happen. Um, you know, maybe not immediately, right? Sometimes they're just like, yeah, let's just let these card pools rest and be forgotten about a little bit, and
James
let
White
things ebb and
has
flow.
said James White has said that he it may not be right away, but he does want people's collections to be like always playable. So like if something LLs, like don't sell out of those cards because there will be a new one coming. It may be a year or two down the road, but so like we are gonna get the Mystic talent again in the future. I think that is a guarantee. And
Though
maybe they skip Illusionist and just do a different Mystic, or maybe they do something else. I don't
I
know,
was
but
I was gonna say the existence of LL as a format and them shifting to throwing a little more weight and attention behind it kind of gives them a nice loophole too. If they're ever like, actually, this combination just seems like it's going to be too toxic, or like we can't make a new hero here that's not just too good or isn't just going to play the same way unless we ban a bunch of cards. So now that LL's there, it's like, okay, yeah, you can always play Mystic Illusionist,
it's
just
funny because
not in
I don't
CC.
think Enigma is good enough to compete in the LL format.
Oh, I fully agree.
So
It's
it's just
nice
not
funny that
nice mirror guy
maybe.
for 8. Here's 50.
Well, you can do the other Enigma plan, the one turn kill combo plan with all what do you got to use? You just recycle all your tokens, all your golds and silvers, and then so you have like 18 blues in your pitch, and you attack for like the 40.
Oh yeah, with was it 3
I
visits?
forget.
Is that the
Yeah, the 3 visits combo.
I don't know if you
Remember
have
how the
time to
teams were
set that up.
almost took that to a pro tour before there was a bunch of bannings?
Yeah, that'd be disgusting. I definitely don't think you have time to do that in Living Legend, unless you pair into Count Your Blessings Oldhim, but you already were winning that matchup.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess we actually have to care about Living Legend with it being a format in Worlds, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out if I play Lexi or Dromai. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
you could play Briar.
I don't have any of those cards, and that hero doesn't interest me. So
Oh,
I do think it is
fair
probably the
enough.
best, but I will not play it.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
I
excited.
own all the Briar cards if you ever need it. I think that's the first deck I ever bought into Flesh and Blood. Like I was getting into the game. My buddy Connor said, "Hey, here's a Briar list. You'll like this hero." I'm like, "Okay, I'll give it a try." Never tried it. It's gotten the drill my immediately. But I do own all the Briar cards.
There you go.
Except I need the new ones printed.
You found your Living Legend deck.
Yeah, it's a lot of 0 for 4s, and then you play one card that makes your 0 for 4s 0 for 7s, and call it a day. Um, but yeah, no, I'm excited that we're gonna get to actually spend some time on LL again. I know there are other people out there that are a little less interested in that than I am, and in fairness, I'm completely biased because all I want to do in this game is play chain, basically, and they're giving me reasons to. So, uh, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the season shakes out. There's a decent amount of like nothing massive, but there's a battle harden or two, a handful of like ProQuest pluses, and then I know it's at least part of the ProQuest season in October. I'm sure it'll be a battle hardened in Singapore because they usually do LL battle hardens there. Um, yeah, so we'll get to get some more exposure to that format on a regular basis, which will be fun. But all right, that's bans, impending LL things. Um, the other news: we're 2 weeks into Nationals season. We have 2 weekends worth of results, and at this point, like results wise, this format looks phenomenal. Uh, there's a lot of the heroes with the most wins so far have 4 or 5 total wins, and the ones with the least, there's a bunch that have one. So there's a pretty good uh, share out there. Syndra is leading the pack. She won 4 in week 1 and 1 in week 2, leading the pack with 5. Then Gravy Bones and Arachne slipped through the cracks, tied for second with 4 wins apiece. And then Verdance and Dio, I believe, are the only other two that have more than one win across the 2 weekends so far. It's definitely Syndra, Gravy, Slippy. That's a interesting little triangle at the top. I don't know how Syndra versus Slippy goes.
I don't even think you can call. I I think it's too open to call it a triangle.
Fair
Like I
point.
think
Yeah.
that's just happens to be what has won events, but like UK Nationals had an Acilio in the top 8. Um, I think there was one Nationals that had multiple Vinsets in the top 8. Um, so turns out you can play whatever you want, and you're in a good spot as long as you have a plan for all the other heroes.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't mean to imply it was a, chain prism starvo triangle, but
Yeah, yeah,
three things standing out at this point. Um,
yeah. I think those are good heroes and pretty consistent. Um,
Are
and
we seeing what we saw at the beginning of Hunted metagame, where Syndra comes out strong, and then because it's the best aggro deck, and then once players relearn to adapt to Syndra again, it will no longer convert? Or do we think Syndra's actually here to stay this time?
I think Syndra is here to stay, but I think in the current format, Gravy Bones is sort of the measuring stick, and Syndra just seems like not quite the absolute best, but the best deck both sort of across the board that also has a conventionally very strong matchup into Gravy.
The deck that I'm very surprised that we're not seeing is Dawnblade Dorinthia, because I like my matchup into Syndra. I like my matchup into an ally-based low action point deck like Gravy Bones. Like assassins are typically good for warrior. Uh, so I'm kind of surprised that I don't know if it's just people aren't playing it or if like there's something holding it back that I'm not seeing. But if if we didn't go to U.S. Nationals and we were playing a Nationals at the end of the season, I think I would be taking Dawnblade.
Yeah, that's
I think it's clear. The answer is Acilio's holding it back. It's
That could
holding back
be.
the whole warrior class all by itself.
What's Verdant's doing up there then?
I think we got. So is this? Are there 4 weeks of nationals or 3? I know there's events this weekend. I don't know if there's. No, it is. This is the last weekend because the ban list was going to be in effect for next week, I believe. So they wanted to make sure they weren't going to affect this last week of nationals. Um, but yeah, so nationals are the format at least looks healthy. Uh, from what I'm hearing in general, the games are good. The games are fun. Um, Getting to
TCG players will always complain about something, but when they're complaining about the golden tipple, you know that the meta is in a good spot. When that is the card that you're complaining about,
my
you're
my
like you're
my one
belittled with
for
extra
three
steps.
discard sort of.
Yeah, you're belittled with extra steps when that's the card you're complaining about. I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me.
And
Can't believe they're not complaining about saltwater swell
yeah, I
though.
don't understand why they're complaining about those cards in CC, but in the limited context, the Golden Tipple is busted.
Yeah.
You see Golden
Yes,
Tipple
indeed.
and you just take it.
Good
Um,
segue, Mark. Good segue.
Good segue. High Seas Draft. Treasure Island. Marlin, Gravy Bones, Puffin, and occasionally Scurv. Um, so Scurv was in like what was it like one in 3 boxes ish. So 1 in 3 drafts approximately. Um, well, not necessarily. 'Cause sometimes you open it super late and nobody goes Scurv. So probably more like 1 in 5 to 10 draft pods is going to have a Scurv. Because you'll have some people that just are like, oh, I'm Scurv late and I have a mediocre Scurv, and other people that are like, I was staying open the whole time trying to live the dream of Scurv in pack 3. um,
I did that.
yeah. But I definitely, after US Nats, after our practicing together, and then also just, watching a few other of the international drafts, definitely seems like, on average, Gravy Bones is going to be the most drafted in a given pot. Marlin going to be in the middle in general, right? Like either tied with Gravy or tied with Puffin. Puffin definitely seems to be underdrafted, although even when it gets underdrafted, doesn't necessarily always seem to be performing. up to I'm the one of Puffin. You should just crush this pod. Um, but that might just be results oriented thinking kicking in over uh, good drafting procedure. Um, but yeah, I guess Alex, you want to take us through some of the archetypes we'd expect to see?
Sure. So I have no reservations about saying that High Seas is the best limited set that Flesh and Blood has put out. Um, I enjoy drafting some of the other sets, but I think um, High Seas just objectively the best because there's a lot of the complaints about Flesh and Blood draft in the past has been like, oh, like once you find your lane after like 3 picks, then the draft's just on rails and you're just like picking cards and nothing. Like it's not the drafting process isn't interesting, even though the gameplay is good. But this time around, Brian and James said, "Hold my beer. We are gonna throw in a fourth hero just randomly into some drafts, so that can throw a wrench into uh, your plans real quick." Um, but you've got a bunch of different archetypes, even though there's only 3/4 um, draftable heroes. A lot of them can flip flop between different packages. So you have the Nimblism package, which is uh, all the Nimblism style cards, like the zero cost, um, going wide. Um, you got Nimblism, you have Nimby, Scar for Scar, Ravenous Rabble, um, those types. The Thieving Varmints, just a 0 for 4 pirate card. And then you've also got the um, Nimblism specific cards like Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Quick, which get buffed if you've already played a Nimblism in this game. You have the Swift Strike Bracers, that are arm equipment specifically for um, if you played a Nimblism this turn. You've got the Quick Clicks, the leg equipment that are specifically if you've played a Nimblism this turn. Um, so you've got that whole package that you can put into Marlin or Puffin most often. I've not seen it used in Gravy Bones. It seems a bit less effective if you're trying to play allies and stuff, which if you're not playing allies, you should probably be playing one of the other heroes. So you get that style package, and then you also have what we ended up just referring to as boats, um, which when people were asking us like how to define it, it ended up just being if the artwork had a boat on it, you probably wanted it in your deck. Um, for example, the HMS Kraken or Marlin. Um, they've got a lot of the boats have the high tide keyword, like Swiftwater Sloop, um, or the Battalion Bark. Um, Basically, the big boats, we're talking about the cards that are good, 2 card plays, 3/7s, cards with high tide, crash down the gates, for example. Um, so rather than going wide, you're going tall with good value hands, which is good in Flesh and Blood.
Also,
Yeah, and one
pretty convenient that all of the boats outside of I believe Swiftwater Sloop are all 3 blocks too. So if you're going this route, you're also prioritizing a deck that can block well on average.
one of the reasons too that these boats are so powerful is because you're able to send a 1 card that's attacking for 8, which is great. And this happens to be a fatigue format. so many of my games went to fatigue, and you're not necessarily fatiguing by blocking. It's definitely more fatiguing by damage. So being able just to get 8 value out of a single card means you're going to be winning deck damage against most of your opponents, and then you're putting the pressure on them to being able to find a way to actually kill you before they run out of cards. I know that was my favorite strategy when I was drafting this format. Was always just I wasn't trying to stay open because I was really just forcing Marlin, but it appeared that I was staying open because I would draft every boat I saw. I would draft all the Swiftwater sloops I saw. Obviously, Crouch Down the Gates was one of my top picks, and then if I happen to open up a Scurv, great. I just have the perfect Scurv deck, and if not, then I can easily fill out the rest of my deck with a bunch of blue 3 blocks that Marlin offers. I actually I would actually draft very few arrows and actually almost never attack with an arrow, even though I'm playing Marlin, and just mainly just attack with boats and just try to fatigue my opponent. Um, and I would make arrows often with the gold with the Marlin's ability, but I would often try to get rid of that gold, get rid of the golden, was it the yellowfin harpoon that they give us? I would most likely try to get rid of it with a golden tipple or a trade in, just getting that extra card value to find another blue or another bigger boat attack.
Yeah. With Marlin, Marlin can play either one of these strategies, which is why I think she's probably the most consistent one to draft. Because you can play with the 2 bows that she has access to, the red spine and the cannon. With the red spine, you can go the nimblism package, take the 0 cost arrows, and they just become 0 cost attacks because with the red spine, you just load them for free and don't have to worry about the arrow subtext. And then with the cannon, you're not you're very not very often going to be attacking with arrows. You're going to be attacking with the big boats and blocking a lot. But then in the end game, you get to, like Mark said, make the goldfin harpoons, put them in arsenal, and then um, block a bunch, and then activate the cannon, send 6 overpower to finish the game that way. And then I think Mechanologist or Puffin also has the same thing, where you can go the nimblism package, take all the cheap Puffin cards like what's it called? Sky Skimmer and Cloud Skiff. Um, those work really well with the nimblism package. Or in mech, you can try to go more just focus on the class cards, which a lot of the Mechanologist cards block for 3. So you can go that way as well. And then Gravy Bones, it tended to be you're either ally heavy and just trying to flood the board because there's not a ton of go again in the set, or you just have a few very good allies and the rest of your deck cards are pretty good. So this tend to be the archetypes that the heroes end up playing into.
And if you're Scurv, you just want to be boats.deck, albeit you can play some 1 for 5s really, really well, because when you break your Gold Kiss rums and get a free resource after you send a 3 cost big attack boat, with Go Again, you can just send 5 more damage, because drinking rum gives him resources.
I really like the design of Scurv and the plan of adding it to this draft set. It's a really cool surprise. It's something you won't see every draft. But do we think, at least in my opinion, I think Sticky Fingers is too powerful in Scurv. I think Scurv would have been more balanced if Sticky Fingers didn't exist and Scurv has had like a different weapon. To me, Sticky Fingers is basically just being 4 free power for free. I know it attacks for 2 for free, and it has 2 life, but that you just get 4 extra damage for no reason. Not for no reason, but just at the start of the game.
Not
And
to
I think
mention
that
at least
really,
1 gold, probably.
yeah, and I think it really skewed. Granted, I don't know the exact numbers, but if I would see the numbers on this, I would believe that Skirbo has a much higher win percentage than all the other heroes, and that's mainly due to Sticky Fingers.
Yeah, and sometimes even more than just 4, right? Because if I have to choose between killing Sticky Fingers with my 0 for 4 or sending it at your face, like kill Sticky Fingers, like that's more than 2 damage that it just blocked for you.
Yeah, and even if it's like, oh, it's just, oh, it's a random trade in or 0 for 3, even if it's an appropriately sized attack, depending on the point in the game that you are, Sticky Fingers eating a card that doesn't require you to block with a card from hand gives you more opportunity to, send that card you didn't have to block with for 6, and that's just further deck damage advantage for you.
Also, really quick, uh, Simon Nielsen did like a draft guide on the mothership. So if you're really wanting to get deep into it, I read through it and we think similarly on a lot of the things. So that makes me feel good because he's really good at limited. So makes me feel good that we are in agreement on a lot of things.
Does he go
Oh,
over pick orders as well? Or does he go over more general like what the archetypes are and what the general game plans are?
Um, a little bit of both. It gives you like examples of like what cards different archetypes will want and should be looking out for in the draft. But it doesn't list out like this is my top pick
Hmm.
always and like that kind of thing.
I always think these draft guides are great, especially for players who might not have the time or the resources to put in of learning the entire draft format. Basically, just getting someone as good as Simon, just giving you the Spark Note version of what the general game plan is for draft, and then
mm,
you can get to experience it yourself, and then figure out which plan you favor the most.
Yeah. The gameplay in this set is even more important because the Treasure Island macro and gold manipulation is a big part of the format, and you can definitely get way ahead or way behind in a game because of it.
It was really interesting when the macro when I was first starting to play my games. At the beginning, I was like, "Oh man, you should just be blocking and denying the gold from your opponents the entire time." But then you're building up like a ticking time bomb where this macro has 6, 7 counters on it, and the first person to actually leak damage will probably win the game. And then when I got into like week 2 of testing of the format, I was like, you know what? I don't even care about the macro in any way. If my opponent gets gold, great. I'm just gonna keep swinging bigger and harder, and I'll get my gold, and we'll just go 4 chain links wide and kill my opponent in a couple turns.
Yeah, the first couple weeks of us, uh, Mark and I did a bunch of drafts together. First chance we got, and people were trying to block too much, and then
mm.
we would end up being like 5 cards ahead in deck damage, and just call the game at that point and be like, we have won the game. Like the rest of it is trivial because we will just run this person out of cards because they're trying to block to deny us gold. And while gold is
When your
good,
strategy
and
doesn't depend on gold, it's just good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, like for specific matchups, that was my game plan. Like if I was playing Marlin, I wanted to go second against most matchups. Like obviously Gravy, you probably want to go first, but in the Marlin mirror, I actually decided that I wanted to go first. If I didn't have too much, if I felt that I couldn't utilize a 4 card hand on my first turn, my first true turn, I'd rather just go first and then send a big boat at my opponent and make him block with 3 or 4 cards. And now I'm up 2, 3 cards at the beginning of the game, and then I feel really confident that I'll be able to fatigue them if and when we get to the late game.
I definitely enjoy drafting Marlon the most.
yeah. My guilty pleasure in this set, too, very much so, was the Red Spine attempting to draft the Cheerios Marlin deck. Um, the cards you play for it are sweet. You just put out a ton of aggression. Uh, Hindsight being 2020, um, it it struggles for the kind of the reason that you're mentioning with the boats being so huge. The deck runs a lot of +3 buffs and 0 for 4s and even 0 for 5s and stuff, but if someone sends a battalion bark for 9, you're like, okay, well, I gotta block this with 3 cards, or you're getting out card valued. That it's also too easy for other decks and even non-red spine Marlin decks to want to chip away at some of the good Cheerios tools that you were very much in need of. Um, so yeah, that was definitely a suboptimal on my part, but it was. I knew I had a blast playing it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna force it. I'll see if I can bully poop off of it, and if it works, it works. It didn't work in day 2, but it happens.
Another thing, the upside to the nimblism, like red spine or puffin um, versions of the nimblism style go wide. The upside to it is that a lot of turns it's just more damage than your opponent can block. The downside to it is um, if I'm playing against it and I block with 2-3 blocks on your nimblism scar for a scar, you leak through 1 damage. You spent 2 cards out of your deck on offense, and then I'm sending back 7 damage off of this Rally the Coast Guard, and so I'm spending 1 card out of my deck for 7 damage as well. So in that exchange of like offensive power, like I am only spending 1 card out of my deck where you're spending 2 cards out of your deck. So we found that a lot of the times we were able to just because almost all of the go again stuff is generic and gets kind of split amongst all 8 players. It's very hard for one deck to just have a mass amount of it to the point where they just bulldoze through you, like Kevin was just saying. So oftentimes we were able to just block a little bit heavier and wait for them to run out of go again, and then all of a sudden their deck is all like 2 block, like 0 for 4 attacks, which are good. But when you have a 5 card hand and you can attack for 4, that's not great.
What's interesting too is you say that the 2 block 4 power attacks are good cards. I actually there were most of those cards I tried to avoid in this draft for this particular draft set, mainly because the 0 for 4 actually got outclassed by 0 for 5s. There were multiple 0 for 5s in the format depending on what hero you're on, and also like there are also there's a lot of 0 for 4s that block for 3, and I found that I'm happy to take the 0 for 4s that block for 3. But if I see 0 for 4s that block for 2, unless it has go again, I almost think that they could hinder your game plan in the long term, mainly because you're just gonna accidentally get fatigued by drafting too many of those.
My favorite card that can never see play outside of this limited format because it's pretty terrible and honestly not even always the best in this format though. But you just like block for 9 and then send the 0 for 5, the Gold Hunter um,
Longboat.
Longboat. Yeah. Have less gold, just send your 1 card 5. In most other formats, that would be just an absurd play to make, but it's
I
good. It's still good, but
maybe it's just me. But I love all 3 of the. Well, I say 3. I guess there's technically 4. I don't love the the 4th one, but 3 of the Gold Hunter cards, I think are really fantastic. The
mm-hmm,
Longboat, that's the 0 for 5 if you have less gold. The Light Sail,
mm-hmm.
that is the 1 for 4 go again if you have that yellow. Um, if you have less gold, and then Gold Hunter Kretch, I think
Catch.
is it
Yep.
Catch 2 cost 7 power yellow attack if you have less gold. And then there's the Gold Hunter Marauder, which I actually don't think is very good. It gets overpower if you have less gold.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that one as much. But I saw those coming around in packs like pretty late. I was very happy to see them.
The other card that a lot of other heroes won't want, that the Cheerios Marlin deck gets to play very well, is Yellow Charter Course. Turns out it's just as much damage as the red one, and it pitches better. Um, I actually end of near the end of day one of Nats, I was facing a Gravy Bones, and it was like near the end, we were getting close to out of time, and they chewed through like 5 gold, I think, and they like broke boots for a go again on an action point or something, and like attacked me for 4 go again into I think a red sloop for 6 go again, and then had a blue um, had a blue charter course into a rigor mortis for 9. So I'm just like, okay, cool. I guess I'm dead. But yeah, turns out blue charter course also buffs for 3. uh, that's a card that for other decks I wish was generic because it's like blue charter course is really strong.
Is it a pirate card? Is
Yeah,
that why?
it's pirate.
Okay, gotcha.
Um,
I knew you could play it in every hero in this format. I just couldn't remember if it was generic or pirate.
mhm.
I really liked of all the heroes sharing talent again and just being able to make drafting so much more smooth.
Yeah, it's I it's part of why uh, I'm hoping that the next like I don't know, but no reason to believe this will actually happen. But if the next time we see Shadow and Light from Monarch, right, we're supposed to see Monarch 3.0 at the beginning of next year, supposedly. I think it would honestly be sick if they just broke it up and they're like, here's your mono shadow set, and then the mono light set. And sure, you can put like Easter eggs in there that is story moments and stuff like that between the two. Uh, but I think that both of those talents have the potential to be interesting enough, but neither time they've never been the full thing featured in the set. And when you have light versus shadow as the set theme, the versus aspect is such a huge part. Like there's so many shadow cards that care about heroes with soul, and there's so many light cards that care about like cards in banish that I don't know. I'd like to see what they look like without their counterpart in a limited environment.
A lot of Dusk Till Dawn is unplayable because it's like this card becomes a little bit above rate if you're playing against a shadow hero. And Vincent and Levia are not enough of the
Yeah.
meta. There's what 34, 35 heroes right now, and two
Yeah.
of them this card is a little bit above rate
Yeah.
against.
It still blows my mind how many cards in that set have blood debt and can't be played from banish. Absolutely mind boggling. When they didn't also print a card that's like, oh, this can like something like a random non-attack action or something that like could enable you like this turn you could play any blood debt cards from your yard or something. But nope, doesn't exist. Um,
Enough of the trauma of the past.
yeah.
So, Mark, when you're drafting, you open up a pack, you're thumbing through it. What are you looking for? What are you hoping for? What are your top like this points me in a direction of wanting to play something, or like this is just the best card that I want 10 of these in my deck.
Yeah, so obviously without being greedy, like obviously you want bomb majestics, but without being hoping that I open a bomb majestic, like the in this specific set, Crash Down, both red and yellow, are extremely powerful. Not only is it a 2 card 8 or a 2 card 7, it has a relevant on hit effect that can also just start milling out your opponent. Like we mentioned before, deck damage is huge, and red, yellow, even blue Crash Down can be played in any hero. So Crashdown was like my top go-to card. The other one I would think is Golden Tipple. We've seen Golden Tipple's effect in Classic Constructed. It's just as powerful, and if not more so, in Limited.
He's
In
banned.
Marlin and in Gravy. It's what? It's banned?
No, it needs banned. Remember?
Oh yeah, all the band talks earlier, yeah. But no, like in limited play, it's basically just like you were saying. I was calling it a free card draw, but yeah, basically a free. It's a belittle in getting your minimalism. Except not getting minimalism, getting literally any card in your deck. I say any cards or any random card in your deck. Um, so Golden Tipple, Crashdown, those are the two biggest cards I'm looking for. And then from there, Swiftwater Sloop, it just helps you set up such powerful turns. Again, all three colors. It's not really making me point in direction on which way I want to go, but it helps me just form a powerful deck, and no matter what strategy I want to be in this format.
A great place for the Swiftwater Sloop. I really love the blue ones because pitch them on the first cycle and then on the second cycle. Oh look, I have 5 gold that I've made throughout the game. Now I'm just going to pitch, draw a bunch of gold, draw a bunch of Swiftwater Sloops, and now since I have all these blues in my pitch zone, they all have go again. So just here's 4 go again, here's 4 go again, here's 9 off my battalion bark to end the turn.
Respectable. Respectable.
And High Tide, it's such a cool like mechanic, and also it's on curve for all the cards. You think the boats cost too much when they cost 4, and you need to get the High Tide, but it's actually just on curve with all the other cards within the format, and also with gold.
Yeah, gold makes them just is a whole different level.
Yeah, a pitch of blue, cracker gold, pitch of blue, send a High Tide boat.
Mhm.
It's essentially it's really just 2 cards for that boat now, and then you're able to arsenal a card.
Yeah, remembering your pitch deck and also looking at what your opponent has been pitching has never been more relevant in a set than this set. It's like, do they have a Swiftwater Sloop coming up? Do they have an Overpower card coming up? Do I need to block a little bit more so I'm not in Overpower range? Do they have a block card to counter my Overpower? Um, because there's very few games that I have seen played that did not get to a second cycle.
Yeah, and you're playing against Gravy. Like, when you saw him pitch an ally? When's that coming back? When can you just
Send
take a
15
bunch
and
of
hope
damage,
it's
go
good
to
enough.
1, yeah, and just send out your entire hand at them? And if they have one ally coming up, maybe it's not necessarily good enough because they can just activate Gravy Bones and discard it and draw another one, draw a card that actually blocks. But if you know there's multiple allies coming up, then you know that you can be able to send your hand and be able to maybe steal a game that you shouldn't have. And it's interesting too, like all these strategies work well for all 3 heroes. So you'd think that Puffin wouldn't be as underplayed or represented as it is. I'm not exactly sure why. Like Puffin's cards are really powerful, and also just going the boat strategy works really well in Puffin. So I don't know. The more I think about the format, I struggle to understand why it seems that Puffin converts the least in these draft pods.
think I think she's the hero that needs gold the most to function and have a hero power, um, and like have cogs to turn on a lot of her cards. Um, and then I think that is part of it. That if you just deny Puffin gold, then her deck is a lot less efficient than it would be. But another part is probably just the sentiment of like the general population is like, oh, Puffin is no good. So then people just stay away from Puffin. They're like, oh, I heard it's no good. I'm not going to try it. Um,
Is that the general sentiment? I guess I'm a little bit out of touch, like what the community thinks about each hero. I know like what our team thinks, but I wasn't sure if that was the general sentiment across Flesh and Blood players.
I've at least I've witnessed sentiment that the pumps in Puffin are kind of actually a trap. That they're not actually, you know, probably in a similar manner when you're initially reading them, you're like, oh, 1 for 4 that can buff my weapon and also does another thing. Like this seems like it should be a really good card because in bright lights, it was a very highly playable card. Uh, but this just isn't bright lights. An offensive power level in this format is so much higher that that's just it sort of ends up being a trap.
So
One for four is just
what
not cutting it these days.
what cards are you looking for, Kevin, when you open a pack or get past a pack? What are your
uh,
go-tos?
as the Cheerios Marlin Forcer, send me all your Swift shots. Uh, that was the card that was the easiest sign that this deck was going to be open. At U.S. Nationals, uh, Pack 1, Pick 2 had a Swift shot, and Pack 1, Pick 3 had a Swift shot, and I was in, no questions asked. Those were the only ones I saw in the entirety of the draft, which is not uncommon because even if you're not going super Cheerios, it's uh, the buff calling the big guns loads arrows face up, so the the heavy harpoon version of the deck already wanted that right. Like, so I know that Mark's version, and honestly probably Alex yours, was the more generic based one, but for the people that were doing more ranger centric harpoon deck things, it was sort of a free roll to get that 1 for 4 in there, or the 0 for 4 go again rather. Um, Beyond that, you really, the charter course in basically every color was pretty good. You wanted the generic go agains. You're a perfectly good deck to get a nimblism package going for you. You're a little less into actual copies of Nimby, but the red nimblisms and the nimblism payoff equipment all just fit in really well into what you're trying to do. Um, Interestingly, while Dry Powder Shot is a good card, it's a card that, in our initial list I'm looking at here, we have Dry Powder Shot like up in the top 5 cards that you want to be looking for, and that is not uh, the case in my opinion anymore. Like it's good, but for the same reason that the Gold Hunter card we talked about just isn't that good. It's something you'll just get at the end of a pack, or you'll get past random red 0 for 4 arrows um, at the end of a pack without you don't have to. You're not like, oh, I'm gonna not be able to pick enough arrows in this draft. They're gonna wheel, and so a 0 for 5 that you have to load face up that turn isn't necessarily a ton better than just the 0 for 4s that you're going to pick up as end of pack sort of ranger chaff picks. Um, but yeah, the buffs are huge, and it pretty much just anything that said go again. The really fun part about this deck is you really, really don't have to prioritize blues. Um, So like, yellow charter course was great because it could either pay for your whole turn or it was as good on rate as red charter course if you had scar for a scar into load an arrow and fire. Um, so it was some cool flexible picks like that. But um, the other nice part was you're not fighting anyone for boats and 3 for 7s, which are really premium for a lot of other seats. Um, so I feel like it enables you to prioritize stuff like, red nimblism that's in this pack that also has a battalion bark. It's like, well, you're not casting battalion bark in a million years, so it just makes that decision making really easy for you. Um, but yeah, in the end, I would say the deck is super fun to play, but unless you are in like a two Marlin draft. I don't know that you're going to get quite the density of power that you need to consistently run people over the way this deck is trying to. Um, oh, but you are also a great trade-in deck. Red or yellow, both totally fine. Turn those harpoons into real cards. Or even just let the harpoon be a harpoon, and suddenly yellow trade-in looks like a 0 for 4, split 2 and 2. So it's
Two and
yeah.
two. Where have we heard that before? Sorry, sorry. Flashbacks.
Rosetta trade-in.
It's funny. We're three different players here, all think that this format has been a ton of fun to draft, and yet we were all forcing Marlin. So how do we draft? How do we draft Gravy? Because we talked about very little about Gravy, and it's definitely been the most popular drafted hero in this format. Alex, what are your opinions on how to draft and play the Gravy Bones archetypes?
So I think, like you said, Mark, the golden tipple enables a lot. And then, like I said earlier, the archetypes are like play Gravy Bones with a couple, maybe like 5 allies. But most of your deck is the good pirate cards, like the sloops and the battalion barks and the 3 for 7s, that kind of dealio. And then you just slowly get your allies in the graveyard, and then at the end of the game, when your deck is just all like blue cards that aren't that great, then you can play out the allies, which either your opponent takes the tempo to kill them instead of killing you, which is good for you, or they ignore them and attack you, which is also good for you. So that it puts you in a good spot when you can play a big ally in the late game. Another option is just get a bunch of the premium allies like Swabby and Rigor Mortis and Barnacle, uh, Chowder. Um, get those and just get a large amount of them, as many as you can get. You probably don't want too many. Probably 10 is probably too many. You probably want like 7 or 8. Um,
8. Holy cow, that
at,
sounds like a high density of allies.
yeah, it's high risk, high reward because obviously there's a chance that you just draw all 4 of them in the same hand and you lose the game on the spot. But the upside is a lot of the Gravy Bones cards are like discard an ally off the top of your deck or from your hand, and then it gets go again, or gets overpower, or gets +1. So that is a great way to then. You don't want to discard them out of your hand for that effect, but if you can discard them off the top of your deck and then play them, it's basically like drawing a card. So I uh, Jittery Bones especially. That's the one that gets go again if you discard an ally off the top of your deck or out of your hand. That costs 0, and then Restless Bones has the same effect, but it costs 2. Um, I think all of the Mutiny cards are really good in Gravy Bones. Honestly, I like all of the Mutiny cards in every hero, me personally, but I think the Mutiny cards are especially good in Gravy Bones.
I think I think if I had to like pick the mutiny cards for a deck, well, I guess it depends on which hero you are, but in Marlin, I want like one of the overpower, and then anywhere like 2 to 3 of the one that's like +2 on your next attack. Um, but as previously stated, your Cheerios decks, you don't really prioritize the blues, so by the time you're going to get random blue headshots at the end of a pack, so you don't have to really try and pick them up, which means other players are going to take all the mutinies and you won't actually get any, but that's okay. You didn't really want them anyways. Um, I did actually. You mentioned earlier that the Nimblism package in Gravy Bones isn't super uh, commonplace to see, uh, and that is true. But blue Nimblism is a card that bends itself to enable heroes being played out. And in one of our practice drafts, I played against Jamie, and Jamie played like Nimblism into Jittery Bones, discarded a Rigor Mortis off the top, had quick clicks to Rigor Mortis, swing with Go again, and like play out another hero and hit me with it or something. It was a really disgusting turn. So it's not you don't want the whole shebang, right? You don't want Nimbies. You're not at all a Nimby deck. Um, and you really don't want yellow Nimblisms. And honestly, most of your deck doesn't even hold carry the buff from Nimblism that well. But it is a cute little trick to make your boots look an awful lot like Snapdragon Scalers in a pinch. So it's a good place to be. Um, all right. So what is y'all's favorite bad card to draft in this set? Or a card that's like it's not good. You're never picking it in like the first go around, but it's a card that you're like I love to wheel this, or like oh man, pick 14, somebody passed me and it's going in my deck. What's that card in this set?
For me,
I don't know everyone's overall sentiment, but is Sirens of Safe Harbor a good card or a bad card? Did I convince everyone it was a good card, or people still think it's a bad card?
I think it's a good card.
I think it's a good card.
All right, then let me think about it. So,
Sirens of Safe Harbor is so much so that Sirens of Safe Harbor has made it into my Verdance deck.
really, I
Sirens
didn't
of
realize that.
Yeah.
I'll take it one step further. Sirens of Safe Harbor is in my KO deck.
Nice.
Yeah.
For the listeners at home, the reason why I mentioned Sirens of Safe Harbor when we were first rating cards in this format, many of the team members in Team Eclipse just thought it was like, a card that you didn't really want in your deck. And I just kept posting list after list of like 5, 6, 7 Sirens in my deck. I said, guys, Sirens all colors, perfect. This is the card to be. And everyone in the team thought I was going crazy.
I think at one point we were doing a two-headed draft and we started the game at 23 life because we just blocked with 3 Sirens on turn 0.
Value. Got him.
Yeah. My card that I'm not choosing first, but I do think it's good and often seems to get past me with 5 picks left are the Gold Hunter cards that we mentioned earlier. Longboat, Catch, Light Sail. Marauder is a bad card. Don't pick that one.
I could never get a light sail to wheel, but longboat I could get pretty consistently. And I guess I sort of already said mine earlier, which is just yellow Charter Course as like a bad card that's pretty likely to wheel that can still be very good.
I think my favorite bad card to draft, and whenever I drafted it, it always made my deck, was the blue Rusty Harpoon.
Blue three
Maybe it's
buck
only blue.
card that actually says harpoon on it.
Yeah, like my deck would have very few harpoons, like actual arrows in the deck, and also like almost no harpoons. But this one was actually a harpoon, and it blocked for 3. It was great. Blue 3 blocks are just very, very powerful in this format. Even if this one didn't attack at all. The only reason why I'd say it's bad is because I would often get it in the second in the wield. Even though I think people, I don't know, it's tough. It's definitely not a card you go after early, but it's definitely a card you want in your deck.
Yeah, I another practice draft game I had where I like just really late in the draft had to use line, which is the look at the top card. If it's an arrow, you can put it into your arsenal, and line gives go again. And I hit a rusty harpoon off the top, but my opponent was at 1, so I took an extra card from their hand and won the game because of it. It was a really silly scenario, but even a rusty harpoon can save the day every once in a while.
Something we haven't talked about yet that I think is very important that we probably should have talked about much earlier. The equipment pieces. I think equipment are kind of slept on in this format. I think I think there's a large percentage of win rate between I have 4 pieces of equipment versus I have 2 pieces. I have 1 piece of equipment.
Oh, if you have the
Uh,
one piece, that you won the draft already. But I digress. Sorry, that was a silly anime joke. I just realized neither of you watch One Piece, so carry on.
so Mark, what's your like? Oh, this is the chest piece that I want. This is the arm piece that I want. This is the leg piece, head piece.
Um,
Yep.
if it if I'm Marlin, I want the Ranger headpiece. What's it called? Patch the
Patch the
hole, I
hole.
believe. Yeah,
That
I
card
believe
is
like
very good.
when I first looked at the card, I thought it was bad. I was like, oh, it's just it's just a generic a Ranger headpiece that's bad, doesn't block at all, it has a pretty mediocre effect. The
Classic
more I
Ranger
played with
headpiece.
it, yeah, the more I realized that Patch the Hole is like 3 value attached to it. If you have a bunch of Rally the Coast Guard or any number of Rally the Coast Guards in your deck, and you can just activate Marlin, get a Golden Harpoon, put it in your arsenal, and then use Patch the Hole to put that harpoon back into your hand, and then discard it to Rally the Coast Guard, and you just got 3 value out of Patch the Hole, which is awesome. Also, just being able to are like sometimes because of how much gold's in the format, you just draw gold and then use your hand, but you get stuck with a bad blue in your hand. You just put it in your arsenal and then you have that blue for later,
My
which is
favorite
great.
thing to do was um, on the horizon, the red block card. That when you block, you look at the top card of your deck. My favorite part was, oh, I have the tempo here, but I have this block card in my hand. I'm gonna use my hand other than the block card, and then I'm gonna arsenal a block card. And then when they try to attack me back, I get to patch the hole and basically have a pseudo defense reaction.
Yeah, I Patch the hole is really nice to let the harpoons not you keeps you not at risk of, oh well, I drew a hand that would have been pretty good, but my arsenal's not clear, so I just have to fire this harpoon. Patch the hole made that a just a really easy play to make that didn't really have any risk to it. And then when you get very lucky and open a return fire in pack 3 when you're already in the Cheerios deck, uh, that's really good too. I actually had a game where 2 hands in a row had no arrows, and the second arrowless hand had return fire in it. So I just like blocked a ton, sent some random crap attack from Arsenal, and I arsenaled the return fire, and I patched the hole with it to clear it. So I still just got to use full value next turn, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna arsenal this, and if I go a third hand with no arrows in this ranger deck, I'll just concede because what am I doing here? But worked out. Card's pretty great.
And I think the best single common equipment in the format is Unicycle. I know that we didn't talk about Puffin too much, but Unicycle is just an onboard trick that has Battle Worn one, so it blocks for one with Battle Worn, and it says instant destroy this, untap a cog you control. With so many of the Puffin cards that you can just tap a cog like multiple times, like was it they call it thrice or twice and then thrice for 3 times. It's just an onboard trick that your sometimes opponents just forget about, and you can just leak damage in, or either leak damage to get gold or just leak damage just to actually just win the game on the spot.
My opponent forgot about it when I was playing Puffin.
I remembered unicycle and I remembered the activatable, and I forgot about the actual just raw on hit, and I died. Tragic.
On hit die.
Yep, it was a pretty good on hit effect. Oh man. Um, Glidewell fins, very very good too. Um, so they're battle worn one ranger arms. They're good if you actually draft any of the good harpoons, uh, because they uh, the hammerhead harpoon weapon doesn't load for you. So having just on board, cool, I can uh, get a harpoon in on a moment's notice is really good. fallback to have. Um, and it also notably loads face up and gives +1, so it's uh, I had turns where like cool break the chest equipment for 1 resource, glide well fins in a a dry powder shot for 6 on a follow up after I already sent like 8 go again or something. Um, and the fact that it's always good in whatever archetype of the deck you're running is just makes it a no brainer for Marlin.
Guys, so when did you start like we talk about how great this equipment is, but when did we actually start when do you guys value it and start picking up the equipment pack 1, pack 2? So I would assume that if you would value all the go again attacks and all the boats higher than the equipment. But once you get past go again attacks and boats, like do you take this over a 0 for 5? Do you take it over 0 for 4? Do you take it over a blue block 3? Like where does this equipment fall in line?
I think it's hard
Interestingly,
because
in this set, I think the
it's
context matters way more than say heavy hitters, where heavy hitters was like, oh, I need to take this. I need to make sure that I, start the game on even footing with equipment that can block a few points of damage. Um, the deck that you're trying to be or are currently drafting matters a lot for it. Um, I'm if I'm Marlin already, I'll be maybe a little less likely to grab a blue sea tricorn, just to be, uh, you know, blade break 1. If realistically, what I really want is to get a patch the hole. Um, and similarly, the quick clicks and swift strike bracers with the nimblism package, right? Like me prioritizing them depends on how many nimblisms I already have, because sometimes you can pick one up speculatively if they're like pretty late in a pack and then hope that the nimblisms come, but like you can't prioritize them early if you don't go like, oh cool, pick 1 and 2 red nimblisms and then quick clicks pick 3. Like you're not actually going to do that, but uh, I think it's a lot more contextual than it usually is for me, anyways.
I think it also that all of that, and then also see I'm yes anding here. We're flowing right now. It depends on what equipment you've already seen go past you. Because if you know that you have passed 3 arm pieces, and then you see another one, you don't need to pick that very highly because in the next pack, those people that you have now passed those arm pieces to are going to be passing back through you. So if there's any arm pieces open in the next pack, they'll end up coming through you anyways. So if there's a card that you're like, oh, like I really need this equipment piece, but also like I don't know if I'm gonna get another walk the plank red to come past, then I will like take the deck card and then rely on uh, the equipment to come back in the next pack. So short answer, it depends.
Uh, exactly what all of our listeners who are prepping for their week 3 nationals want to hear.
Yeah.
Gladwell fins will not wheel to you, so pick it accordingly. There's my very specific Marlin advice.
I
Okay.
don't think any of the battle worn equipment, except for maybe the rust belt, just because Puffin tends to be underdrafted. So
Yeah, that's fair.
if there's 3 rust belts somehow in a draft, it's possible that it'll just like keep coming around because the 2 people that are Puffin already took it.
Also,
I
the
mean,
the generics and pirate only, and the pirate equipment are also just like still pretty good. Like Buccaneers Bounty and Old Knocker, I'm usually not disappointed to have to pick those. Like Buccaneers Bounty is obviously the better of the two, but even Old Knocker early can be just a really good little tempo play if you're not tapping your hero already. I guess Old Knocker is worse for Gravy, who's probably trying to tap as often as possible. Um, but Marlin, you sort of usually build up to it first and then start tapping later. Um, and just getting a few extra block points and stuff, right? We talked about you don't want to overly block usually because that's going to lead you to getting fatigued by damage because your opponent's going to be attacking for more per card than you're defending with per card. Um, and so a few pieces of Blade Break 1 can be like, okay, well, normally I would let this just hit me, but I can one card block and equipment block this for to keep you off of gold on this particular turn. Um, it just helps you jockey for gold a little bit without having to
Hold
compromise
on a
your
card.
ability to win the game.
One last thing before we end the drafted talk is how did you two rate not so fast the Scurv specialization?
Oh, that's something else I want to talk about. In the cards to watch in the draft, watch for Scurv, obviously the hero. Um, but then also not so fast the specialization because um, they are in the same box together. So if you open a pack and it's got a not so fast in it, it there will be, assuming that you're drafting from one box, there will be a Scurv in that box. So just keep that in mind. Either take the card or, so nobody else sees that, and hopefully you get Scurv later in one of your packs or it gets past you or whatever. Um, but just keep that in mind. But to answer your question, Mark, I I think that if you're playing in a nationals or can be playing at Singapore, I think I'm never picking not so fast. I just think that if you're playing against a Scurv, you kind of just assume that they have it. So I'm never making my turn. I'm gonna draw a gold here, and that's what my turn relies on to be good. Um, it's always kind of like, okay, I'm gonna try to draw off gold here, and if they play not so fast, then like my turn's not ruined. It's just a little worse.
Yeah, I agree. I'm never taking not so fast. I've been a Scurv in a draft and had an opportunity to take a not so fast with like a pack 2 or 3 pick 13 kind of scenario, and I still did not take not so fast.
Yeah, it's that card is was so weird. When I first saw Not So Fast, I'm like, oh man, this is the most busted card in Scurv. If you're Scurv, why wouldn't you play Not So Fast? Because you just always deny a draw. And then I was lucky enough to be Scurv in a draft. I also had Not So Fast. I put Not So Fast in my arsenal, and then my opponent recognized I was Scurv and never cracked a gold. And then at some point, I just had to play Not So Fast just to get out of my arsenal. So I just basically IP'd myself
Yep.
or
Another
had my arsenal
If
stuck
it
for
if
the
it
entire game.
blocked if it blocked or did literally anything else, you could convince me maybe, but
It's a
it's
yellow.
yeah.
You discard it.
Uh, no, hard pass, hard pass from me. Let
Another
them do what Mark's opponent did, which was just, oh, okay, cool. I'll just never crack a gold to draw a card in this game. I'll use it for other stuff.
Another thing
Nope.
is Scurv, you're a thief. You're stealing so much gold that like your opponent may not even have a gold for them to crack if you just keep stealing it or taking it off of the treasure island.
So this leads to the question like, do players meta game this? Like, here's three of us all saying that Not So Fast is a bad card. Even if we just won't draft it or play it in our Scurv deck if we have it. If you're a really good player, do you go, oh, I know my opponent's good. I know they're playing Scurv. I know they probably won't be playing Not So Fast. Then do you just crack gold? Like, do you start the leveling war?
No, I think you just because it's still just like a card in the deck that they have to draw and have in the right moment. So it's a non-block yellow hyper conditional thing, and sure, if they hit it at the right moment. If I'm on a turn where I'm like, ooh, well, I need to, you know, somehow I have a full grip and didn't have a chance to block, and my hand still just does nothing unless I crack this gold first. Like, you just don't do it unless you have to. And if you have to and they have it, then okay, that is how this game lined up. I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think I care about it enough to try that hard to level the not so fast. But also, if you
Yeah,
get hit with
I
a not so fast, it really sucks for you.
yeah, I just found this card to be the most interesting card in the draft to talk about because of just like how wide the grading scale was for this card, at least for myself, on how I thought it was just went from the best card to just an unplayable card in a very short amount of time. And I don't
It
think I've ever had a card in Flesh and Blood um, change so drastically in grade in my draft grades.
Yeah, that's fair. Like if he had a weapon or so, like if he had a weapon, my opinion probably changes, right? If there's a resource sink that's always on board, and like okay, yes, you could pitch not so fast and crack your own gold. That is a thing that you can do, but like you're not up just cycling this card that's not doing anything for you for no net benefit.
Um, so realizing that we skipped over it, just like most players skip over it. Should we talk about Puffin? uh, I think I'm the only person here who's drafted Puffin.
No, I drafted like seven Puffins, and each time I was like, I wish I was Marlin.
Oh, okay. Um, cards I'm looking for when I'm Puffin, Goldwing Turbine, because assuming that you have a gold, it just allows you to draw a card off of cranking twice in Puffin's hero ability, which drawing cards in a card game is good. Uh, Sky Skimmer, 0 for 4, go again, or 0 for 5, block 3. Chef's Kiss. Cloud Skiff, being a 1 for 5. Tap a cog, give it go again, or +1, is lines up good with the Blunderbuss that costs 2. So all of a sudden, that's just a 2-card 7, assuming that you have a cog to tap, a blue, and a Cloud Skiff. Funny enough, Puffin runs the 1 for 5s, the pirate generic cards. What's expedition? The expedition 1 for 5. I can't remember the name of it, but that lines up well with Puffin's blunderbuss cost curve as well, and that card is not drafted highly at all. You can end up with as many of them as you want, I think. Um, let's see.
It's
The
funny you named all these common cards that are good in Puffin, but if I saw any of those cards, it is not a reason for me to want to be a Puffin. I feel like unless I open the Bomb Majestics, I just never want to be Puffin in this format.
the reason to be Puffin is the Majestics, yes, because they are very good. But the Cogworks Zeppelin, um, with the on hit, it lets you play Spitfire, the weapon, rather than the Blunderbuss, which 2 damage just for the cost of tapping a cog instead of um, 2 resources is pretty good. And I'm wondering if not enough people are playing Spitfire, and that is why Puffin seems to be doing worse. If they're building their deck around paying 2 resources for 2 damage off the Blunderbuss, which is not fantastic, but 2 damage for free is a lot better. I
Yeah, that
also, as much as the 1 for 4 buffs, like Kevin said earlier, might end up being a trap. uh, perk up, the one that untaps your hero. I think that one is good because you can tap, sacrifice a gold, crank, and then play that and do it again to draw a card.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. It's
Yeah.
definitely the best of the 1-for-4s.
Also, the teeth of the cog and dusty old wrench, the galvanize that let you block with them and then destroy an item you control to make a golden cog. You can either block with two of them and end up drawing a card on defense because you can crank them, or you just go into your next turn with a golden cog still on the field because it'll lose a steam counter at the beginning if you don't crank it. Um, that's my TLDR. But
Something
if you,
that oh good.
I was gonna say, but if you do want to read about it, then read Simon Yeffin's Pro Draft Guide.
Yeah, it is. It's a good read. It seems very thorough. Um, Something that when this format was first spoiled and we saw that Gravy has no actual weapon beyond the compass and everything, something that I assumed would end up not like a format defining big deal, but a bigger deal than it has, is the fact that Cogworks Blunderbuss is the only just weapon that just says like pay resources attack. There's nothing else that just attacks on its own. Um, and the number of times that has actually mattered in any of my games is remarkably low.
Yeah. The it I ran into this twice where it only attacks for two. A lot of the Gravy Bones allies have 3 health. So it came down to, oh, me and my opponent both have no cards in deck. Well, I have like a blue to fuel my weapon, but my opponent has a 3 cost ally or a 3 health ally. So eventually I am going to lose this game because I will have to block with this card and they can keep attacking with the ally. Uh, and then Marlin has her make a Goldfin to put it in your arsenal. And then next turn, attack for 2, make another Goldfin, put it in your arsenal. That is a 0 card too, assuming that you have gold.
Yeah, yeah. 0 card damage. Pretty good.
I
All right.
think that is all I got.
I think that'll do it, yeah. Um, any final thoughts? Speculation? Anything?
Make sure to like, and subscribe to this podcast.
Mark more on top of this than me or Alex. What a champ! What a champ! Um, but yeah, I think that's gonna do it for us. Thanks for hanging out. Hoping you're also greatly enjoying drafting high seas. Um, Hopefully this is the first of a trend of really epically good draft sets in Flesh and Blood. Um, and yeah, we'll be back in another couple of weeks. Maybe talking about LL rather. Maybe not. We'll find out.
Maybe
Uh,
we'll finally see Azalea join the LL ranks.
Ooh, that'd be nice. Hasn't hasn't won? No, Azalea won
One
one
one.
in week
It
one.
has 1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
needs to get a
I
few
don't
more
think
there.
Dash IE will be joining, but there's a chance for Azalea.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. No more red in the ledgers in my future, please. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. See ya.